So here we are. Thank you very much for joining us on this webinar today. This is a leadership roundtable where we will be talking about engagement, retention, and belonging in 2026. We're very happy to have you here today. And without any further, I will send all the information to John because he will be the host for this amazing conversation. So just go ahead, John. The screen is all yours.
Thank you, Belen. Really appreciate that. You'll have to let me know if I can advance slides or not. I don't know if I can do that, but I'll give it a shot here. But really, welcome everybody. My name's John Rizika. I am the VP of Partnerships here at Yellow Dig, and I really want to make this I actually just made myself a coffee. I want to make this a coffee chat. I want to make this a conversation, and so really want to kind of pay attention to pay attention to the chat there and also just understand sort of who we have in the room today. So from our side and our distinguished panel here, we really want to think about um, who's in the room for us and how we can answer your questions and really talk about these things. We introduced this idea of engagement, retention, belonging. These are gigantic words, right? These are things that we could each spend several hours on. And so to kind of think about how we narrow the conversation, would love to get some questions in the chat about how you're thinking about these things. So would love to introduce our panel, and I feel like my role today is sort of the facilitator. I want to draw the great insights from your experiences out and give those to the world. So if we go in order of the slides here, or sort of left to right, so we'd love to just more than an introduction. I know that you're all wearing multiple hats, and so you're very much more than your title. So I'd love to hear that a little bit more detail about kind of what you're working on in your intro and sort of what's top of mind for you and where are you spending a lot of your time. So Nick, take it away, please.
Thanks, John. Hi again. I'm Nick DeMeo. I'm Director of Instructional Design for American University here in Washington, D.C., where cherry blossoms are in peak bloom. So if you ever get a chance to visit around this time, it's really pretty out there. And but in here, I am really looking forward to talking about our work that spans both completely online graduate courses and also online and residential undergraduate courses, many other special projects that we take on as a unit of a small team of instructional designers with a lot of great experience. And my background is having been an instructional designer here at AU, and then eventually a senior instructional designer, and now the director of instructional design. So I'm really interested in hearing from everybody on the panel today of ideas to bring forward to our team to make us even better at engaging with our students. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Nick. Heidi.
Sure. Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. I am the Director of Instructional Design Assistance, Engagement and Assistance. We just came up with that because it's IDEA, and our team liked the idea that we were the IDEA team. We do professional development. That's the faculty development. How do we keep faculty engaged in the online teaching and course design process, as well as supporting all the educational technologies for the programs that AU Online manages. And a big bulk of our work is developing the courses for the programs that we manage. And as an instructional designer by education and by trade, I have been through many iterations of trying to make discussion, conversation engaging for students and make it actually an element of the course that makes them want to stay in the course. So I am thrilled that I have found Yellow Dig in particular because it answers a question I've been asking, and I've been in instructional design since '94. So I'm not going to calculate that for you, but for a while. And this has always been an issue. How do we engage our students? And that engagement then leads to retention, and that engagement leads to a sense of belongingness. And then how do we extend that to our faculty as well, that we want to retain as our instructors, that we want them to feel like they have a sense of belonging to a community of instructors that are concerned about not only the content, but their students at a larger level. So I too look forward, as did Nick, to learning from those on the panel, but also you. I see quite a few people in the participants, and I look forward to learning from you as well.
Great. Thank you, Heidi. Appreciate you taking the time today. Maha, would love to hear from you.
All right. Thank you, John. Hello, everyone, and welcome again into this great presentation. I am Maha Mikdadi. I work as an enterprise instructional technology administrator at New Mexico State University in Las Cruces. So here at New Mexico State, I support both faculty and students in using digital tools to enhance their teaching and learning and also engagement. So a big part of my roles involved working closely with faculty to design courses in Canvas, helping them align their activity and assessments, of course, and also introduce them to a different tool that can help them in their teaching and in their courses as well. I also spend a lot of time troubleshooting, consulting one-on-one with faculty and looking at how technology can improve not just course delivery, but also overall students' experience, especially when it comes to engagements and connection. So today, my most of my perspective, let's say, come up from my experience working with faculty and students at the same time, and seeing what works in practice and where the gaps still exist. I'm also an instructor, so I've been working also with students, and I'm as an instructor also sometimes I struggle to bring my students to work together in teams since they are the majority of them are a second language learner. So this is the big challenge that I would love to hear today from my colleagues and from everyone attending this webinar.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, everybody, actually. So we've got some really great perspectives here, and really to kind of frame it or kind of to tee up the conversation, I did want to just kind of give a little bit on our kind of what I'm reading and what I'm seeing in the space. And so, Belen, if you can go to the next slide, or Tamara, please. This is research that's happening. Actually, it's I'm reading a lot of stuff that's coming out very, very recently. And so this is a study from WGU Labs. We're happy to find that link, put it in the chat for you, or send it after. But really, I was kind of taken aback that nearly 2/3 of their students reported making zero connections with fellow students outside of their coursework. So they're telling us they want to make meaningful connections. They're finding other places to do that, and yet we're not really giving them space to connect with each other. So that's one statistic that kind of like I've seen even in the past, few weeks, that's really been, kind of framing how I think about student connection and engagement. And then the next slide will have another stat here, which is actually interesting as well. If you can go to the next slide, please. That the decision making by students is happening sort of in a vacuum. So we've got all these systems set up to try to, help students and manage students before they decide that they're leaving a university or before they decide it's too much for them. And what we're seeing from this study, especially, is that these decisions are being made without consulting peers and without consulting their advisors. So they're not using those systems. So then what's missing from that? Like, where are they not finding, finding that help that they need to make better decisions? So those are a couple things. And again, we're happy to send those to you. I've been in traveling a bit in a couple of different events lately that really are focused on some of these big, big challenges. And so want to hear from folks in the chat. If you can, maybe does this resonate? Are these things that you're seeing at your university? How are you thinking about it? In the upfront part, we talked a little bit about, I want to keep this focused on, I think, frameworks and how we make decisions. Maha, you're going to bring a lot of great insight into institutional or enterprise level sort of technology decisions. But I also want to think like not just tool selection, but also frameworks. Everybody here talked about faculty and working with faculty, and how do you really get them on board and get them to see sort of, not just a tool use, but a framework or a different way of thinking. So I want to kind of, use those couple of things there to tee up our sort of conversation for today. So uh, if we can go to that next slide, kind of for our first question for the panel. If we think about the student life cycle, and if you're designing something for connection, you think about, okay, I really want my students to feel something here. I want them to feel connected, not just sort of complete some exercises or pass a test or do well on an assessment. How do you think about those early in the life cycle in engaging students? I don't want to cold call on somebody on my panel, so I'm going to rely on you to kind of come off of mute. And if you've got a good response to that, let's start there about sort of that early entry point, early student life cycle. How are you thinking about student connection in that part of the world?
So John, up until 2 months ago, we were starting with orientation. Again, AU online, fully online programs. We had an orientation that students took about between 4 and even the week of before class starts. So we were getting them ready, getting them introduced. They were using all the different technologies, getting used to the environment. So it's sort of like them being on campus and getting used to that space and being able to walk around. Then, as I was collaborating and talking with my team member, who is the director of enrollment student success, we were talking about, well, what about before that? What about when they get admitted? How do we let them know right away that they belong? That there's a space for them here at AU prior to them even orientation. So we've just started in January. We created what we call a student hub, and in that is a yellow dig conversation space. And the idea is that from day one, when they're admitted, they feel like they are a part of AU, even that they're an online student. So they can be a part of that conversation. There's resources in them. Now, again, it's only been running for 2 months. Spring isn't our biggest start time for students, so we'll see what happens with summer and the fall. But I think it's important to look through that whole journey, and then we're using it more and more in courses, but we're really trying to say up front, you belong here. There's a space for you. And we'll see how that part goes. It's gone well in orientation. We'll see how the first part goes.
Yeah, love hearing about that. Would love to hear about any early success that you
Mm.
are seeing from that and how you're adjusting the approach as well, because I think that's important. Um, Maha, I noticed you came off mute. What do you
Yeah,
got for us?
Yeah, thank you so much. Actually, Heidi just provide a really great example of using Yellow Dig to reach out to the students earlier before the classes just started. So when I think about early student life cycle, like awareness, application, orientation, and enrollment, so I see a big opportunity to start building connection with those students much earlier than just start publishing the course. So working with students, especially in an open lab here at New Mexico State University, we do provide a live support for students and faculty to reach out to them much earlier before they just falling behind. So we have realized that many students, they don't fully engage until the classes begin. But then we may have already missed an important key to establish a sense of belonging until just waiting the courses to begin. So what we do, and we just published that a week ago. We are using Yellow Dig to build a community where all students, especially those new students, are attending NMSU to attend or to communicate with each other. We know that students they may come to the school, they meet one or two person only, and that's it. But with a different technology tool like Yellow Dig, we can bring all the students to meet each other, to know each other, and even to support each other and provide support for each other before they falling just behind. That's one of the thing. Another thing also we have or we are doing at this time is every semester before just the classes started, we start like about 2 weeks earlier, providing training for faculty about all the technology tool. We are supporting here about 33 systems. So we provide technology. We try to publish or try to spread the word about all the technology we have for them. Even we do something we call Start Your Semester Right. This is a great workshop where you can introduce or guide faculty how they can start the semester right, how to reach out to the students, how to create a sense of belonging environment for their students. And that's really, we have a really great attendance from faculty seeking help with that. And another thing also, I don't know if every university have the same thing. We do have academic technology, and we have also teaching academy. So we are collaborating together to make sure that both the pedagogy and the technology we are supporting are connected together to reach out to those students.
That's great. And super, super excited about the focus on faculty. Just to follow up on that, how are they responding to sometimes I know faculty get fatigued with sort of platforms and new things and shiny new tools, and they kind of go, wait, 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 we just need to take a step back here. And we're all pressing forward, and they're kind of going, hold on, like, make it
Yeah.
stop. So how do you balance that with sort of like addressing their needs?
Mhm.
While also kind of advancing the overall, I guess, efficiency and overall technological advancement of like what how capable they are.
Okay, so we do that, as I just mentioned, our secret sauce, let's say, is the academic technology open lab. So we are opening Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 through Zoom. And we do provide also support in person. We have one of our team always in office, and the majority of the team going to be online. So what we do, we invite always faculty to come and talk to us first. So we have one-on-one in a breakout room. We talk to them. We see exactly what they need, what they are looking for, and from there we start offering them more information or introduce a different teaching tools that we are supporting. And based on what they want to accomplish in their courses, we recommend the different tool they need. Also, sometimes faculty they reach out to us. They use the tool, but in the middle, something come up. So as much as faculty join us in lab, we learn from their experience and we pass those experience to other faculty. So not just our experience as a faculty. So I'm an instructor. I always my experience in the classroom, but also seeing other faculty, how they implement or how they use different tools to promote the students or to reach out to the students. We share it with faculty. One of the great thing is when we start with using Yellowdick, for example, this is a great example. Everyone was wondering how can we use Yellowdick in STEM courses, like math course. So to me, I was like, first time I used Yellowdick, I said, no way. Like, why are we going to use Yellowdick in math? It's just exam one and two and final exam. So there's no space for Yellowdick. But when we saw a different class or one of the instructor create a really amazing community in a math class, we start like spreading the word. Even we invite that instructor to talk to other faculty as a guest speaker in a different workshop, telling them exactly what she did, what style or what strategy she used Yellowdick to bring the students together. So that's one thing we do in our department.
Great. Very nice. Thank you so much. Nick, I saw you came off mute as well. Do you have more on this sort of early student life cycle conversation?
I wanted to say it's really heartening to hear what Heidi and Maha mentioned about the success of Yellow Dig and the faculty buy-in with that at an early stage. I wanted to zoom out just a second and talk about what we see at American University as what's at stake here. There's a lot of demand, there's a lot of supply of online courses and also higher education for undergraduates, but the demand is shrinking, enrollment is getting smaller. And so what we aim for, and with an eye toward not just the beginning of the student's journey, but also toward the middle and ultimately the end of their journey, for them to stick with American University the whole time. Like we're looking for sticky students and anything that we can use to make students feel a connection to AU right from the jump. So if it's creating a friendship through a Yellow Dig community, creating faculty mentorship through some other sort of platform, that is going to make it we think less likely that a student will transfer out of our institution into one of the many other institutions that provides uh, other types of instruction that we provide. The economics of that are what they are. So um, the choice of sticking with an American university online degree because you've made some connection with uh, another student or a faculty member from the start, we think is extremely important and is an investment that is important to take. So it takes not only the faculty to be on board, but all of us, staff, administration, to be on board with retaining students.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, that's a great sort of segue. I pulled a link as people were talking here, and I just want to post that. So if you can't tell, I tend to read a lot. I love to look for resources and external validation for some of the ideas that I have. This link, and it may, hopefully it's not behind like a, I don't know, a paywall or not a paywall, but like a uh, whatever, behind a wall there. Um, it's a report, and I would just say scroll to page 4. This is exactly what we're talking about. This is what also was interesting to me was the headline here is that learners are continuing to shop even after they've enrolled in a course, right? So when you think about as an administrator, the student journey, you go and you get the inquiry, you get that inquiry down to an application, you get that application to an acceptance, and then now you're like, okay, great, we did our jobs. We got a student, right? So this is exactly what you're talking about, Nick, is like there's a lot of things that need to add up on the way in to make that person stay and make them sticky. And I thought this research was really interesting, and that just that page 4 for me is like, basically a third or quarter of students are still shopping, even after they've made a decision, even after they've shown up, right? So um, I thought that was interesting and wanted to share that. And this is the kind of stuff that that I love talking about. So I do want to transition to kind of if we're thinking of this in sort of 3 sections of sort of student life cycle kind of vision. The meat of our conversation is really about student learning and student engagement in classes and in courses and in their educational experiences. And I can't see a name here, but in the Q&A, someone teed up a really great question for us. I don't know if everyone can see the Q&A. I think that's just for the panelists here, but I'll kind of read the tee up here, which is a great segue for us. So, anonymous attendee, thank you for this. In my experience, instructional designers are the connection between the provost vision and the execution consistency in the classroom, right? So the folks that you are leading are that sort of that connection from the vision to the execution in the classroom. Great. Now, the question is, how do you navigate that? And how do you think about the enterprise change that's required and the faculty adoption? We talked a little bit about that too. So, like the idea of early adopters to sort of those fast followers, and then even those kind of like folks that are slower to adopt. So there's a lot there, but maybe talk about sort of that mid journey, that middle part of the student journey where you're really leveraging faculty, and that has a big outcome on student experience and student welfare and sense of belonging. So how are you thinking about that? And we can go in any order of our panelists here.
I'm just sitting with that for a moment and the really great question from the chat. And I'm going to borrow a phrase that a former colleague, a good friend of mine, used when actually pitching Yellow Dig to a potentially interested faculty member and talking about as instructional designers. And it's that the instructor is still the best technology in the classroom, in that, you may be familiar with some of the Yellow Dig's studies on there being multiple different forms of engagements, social part, the engagement with the faculty members. And I always want to elevate that faculty need to have enthusiasm for any, say, call it technology tool, any pedagogical strategy that we propose. And I also want to make sure that we do pick the best and easiest stuff to use, so that kind of obstacle to entry is as minimal as possible, from getting instructional designers to talk about the benefits, from faculty members actually getting in there and using it. And I just, yeah, to double back on the great comment in the chat, the instructional designers are the people to make the best case for the what is going to be best for students. So I couldn't agree with that more. So we just want to empower them to help make that conversation easier.
And I think based on what Nick was saying is those instructional designers are the ones talking to the faculty, and then the faculty become the champions of any new paradigm, of any new strategy, any new technology. So probably the instructional designers are the ones that are out there, right? They're the new technologies. They're having those initial conversations, trying to recruit people. And then they get those faculty where it starts to catch on, and they see the possibility, because it is a paradigm shift when you're going from a discussion, post once, reply twice, death by discussion kind of environment, and you're trying to get the students in. And one of the aspects that I think that really lights the fire under faculty is that they can be a part of the conversation. And I know I've taught in different platforms and such, and I feel like I'm grading the conversation. I'm not a part of the conversation. And so this idea that now when I'm teaching my Masters of Education students that, yeah, thank goodness somebody else is keeping track of all that, and I can be in conversation with the students. And I think that's a part of what faculty start to see. And spot on, Nick, if the faculty are enthusiastic, right? That's going to carry through the students. If the faculty are engaging, that's going to carry through. So not only then if that in that one course that leads to retention in that course, but if you're using this platform across courses, then there's persistence, right? This is a great tool. I've never been able to use it before. In that next class I'm taking, it's using it. Well, I'm going to sign up for that class. So it contributes to the stickiness, right? It gives them something that they want to come back more for, because in that is the connection, in that is the student agency. And actually faculty agency, they're coming up with the topics. They can on the fly create new rewards, create new topics. And rather than, oh, I have my question, I have to stick with that forever, the faculty can react in a multitude of ways. And so I think if the vision of the provost is to provide a more engaged online experience, and really, quite frankly, it doesn't just have to be online. This can be used in on-campus courses effectively to bridge between in the classroom and when the students are out. But if we're trying to engage students over time, and that's what we're trying to translate, I think instructional designers connecting with the faculty, creating champions, is a great strategy. It's been effective for us.
Thank you so much, Heidi and Nick. Actually, you provide a really great points talking about how the importance of instructional design in the student's life or in the faculty's life. So, working with academic technology here, especially when we meet students and faculty, and we are also using a different tool to measure the students' engagements in courses and identify students who are at risk or students who are never logged into the course, for example, and reach out to the instructor and reach out to the student's mentor just to make sure that those students are not falling behind, or reach out to them earlier as much as possible. So working in that, we have seen that the courses that are well designed, we can see that the engagement is really high between the students. A lot of faculty, they just create we can say a very simple course, not because they are not careless, for example, but because they don't know. They don't know exactly the different online strategies or what they need to include, or the QM, how to meet the QM rubric, or any of these policies. So working with instructional design in this case can really help create a more interaction courses. That's include like structured discussion, collaborative assignments, or that's actually really create a well-designed courses for students that help them engage more in the courses, complete their assignments more. Sometimes students, they come to the class or into the Zoom lab. Um, they are falling behind or they are overwhelmed. When we check those courses, we find out that there is not a clear instruction for students, no more resources available for the students. So we work with the instructor. We direct them to work with an instructional designer. We have a really great instructional design team here. They can jump in at any time to help those faculty. So as much as faculty, they just connect with the instructional design, or earlier they connect with instructional design, the more engagements we will see in their courses.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and I appreciate all the thoughts there. Nick, did you have a follow-up and a maybe another thought on that?
Yeah,
Or
to follow up in a question of,
cool.
the alternative of not having an engaged course and not having students reach out early to the support is that shopping around that you brought up in the context, John, where they have a bad experience, it just takes one. So I am curious about those other really great term, Heidi used, persistent practices that students can expect from course to course, which tells them, one, they're not alone. They can reach out for support, whether it's from other students or from the administration, the staff, the faculty themselves. Those would be, I think, those touch points in courses that make for stickier students. So love to hear in the chat and from the panelists as well, and any other practices toward that end.
Mm.
Heidi, I love the word that you used, and it's kind of been kind of bubbling below the surface here. Maybe we just bring it up. It's like the idea of agency
Mm-hmm.
across. So right now, the kind of thing that I'm hearing in a lot of the conversations I'm in, faculty feel like they are losing their agency with some of the AI tools. And I know that this is proudly not a webinar on AI, probably one of the few things you'll attend this week that doesn't have AI in the title. So let's celebrate that. But as these tools kind of get, pushed towards faculty through either systems or whatever it may look like, um, they feel like they might be losing some of their agency, and they kind of go, look, I don't know, this thing has changed. So if we're able to, Heidi, I think you put it best, like bring them back into the conversation, make them an equal participant in the conversation, then that's going to give them that agency of like, okay, now I feel like I'm kind of like back in some form of control here. And at the same time, you've got students, and they kind of, historically have talked about this discussion-based learning environment where it's like, faculty tell me what to talk about, when to talk about, who to talk about it with, and how many times. And then, oh, by the way, they're going to grade it, right? So I think there's a shift here if we can think about frameworks of using the level of age, like raising the level of agency, using that word of like, let's return that agency back to folks. And importantly, kind of how we started this thing was really with the instructional designer, right? So they're the ones who can help convert faculty to think differently. They're the ones who can sort of connect it to the student experience, say, here's what we need to be thinking about as students are, engaging with us and as we're getting their feedback through those experiences, and hopefully those things all add up to students who feel a sense of agency over their learning journey. They feel more connected to each other and obviously more connected to the institution. So very, very nice. If we think about transition, we've got about 20 minutes, and I want to make sure we do leave time for questions. I don't see a ton of activity in the chat. I'm going to point that out now. I would love to see a little more, but because we do want to make sure that this is useful and we are answering or at least addressing some of the things that you're seeing out in the space. And I guarantee you, as good as I think I might be, I'm totally not nailing it. So let me know what else you want to hear from the panelists and make sure that we use the rest of this time wisely. So we think about that idea of like that student life cycle. We get towards the end of an experience. They are starting to wrap up. And then how do you think about sort of this go forward momentum where many schools are actually thinking of themselves as this lifelong learning function for students? Not, not just a one and done. They want to make sure that they are, you are the space or you're the thing that they think of when they come back for that next educational opportunity. So as career, we've all seen the statistics, the sort of the lifespans are increasing, the career spans are increasing. We're all having to reinvent ourselves and be lifelong learners to be competitive and to stay relevant. And so how do we make sure that the university is the destination for that? How do we, and then I think for today's theme as the community layer for that, how do we think about that as the community layer for that continuing ed or that sort of lifelong learning opportunity for students? Maybe we go in reverse order.
Oh,
I don't know. Whatever you go for it, Heidi. You came off mute, so you got a good.
no, I
good
want to
thing.
give Maha a chance, so go ahead if
I'm just still thinking at this time. So go ahead, Heidi. Maybe I can steal one of your ideas.
Okay. Well, we just started a conversation. In fact, I was with Alessandra maybe in our last meeting about how do we continue the conversation outside once they graduate? Is there a way to have a community that's not connected to D2L, that's not connected to the university, where they can maintain those connections? So, Nick was saying if they connect with their peers, then that's that stickiness. But we also want them to keep those network connections. Maybe we don't need to facilitate that. Maybe if they're strong enough, they are coming up with their own ways of staying connected outside. But maybe we do, and that's just not an area we've actually done any work in and thought about other than our first meeting with Alessandra. So I think that's something we'd like to investigate, is how do we keep the conversation, at least like from the hub, going on for those who want to stay connected that way. If
Yeah,
you know of anybody, or if anybody out there is doing it either with Yellow Dig or some other method for keeping the conversation going, we'd love to hear it.
yeah. One of the things I would say there is like as a grad of two institutions would think also about what's different about you and your faculty and how can you engage faculty in that um, effort. So what sorts of things are they producing or publishing or talking about? How can you engage them to then add value into that
Mhm.
sort of post-learning space, right?
And even if you're thinking about where they might go next in their degree, are they going to undergrads, then the masters, then here we have an EDS for education, then you have a doctorate program. How are they staying connected through that sort of that pipeline, that pathway? If they're a really great experience then they might be a 2-time JAG or a 3-time JAG. And how does that sense of stickiness go beyond the class, one class, beyond a program? And can we leverage technologies such as Yellow Dig and others to assist with that?
Yeah, great. Any other thoughts?
That's actually a great thing, Heidi. We are also looking for that. I'm a staff here. I'm also an instructor, and I graduated 2 years ago. And I'm still looking for how can I keep connecting with the university. If I did not work here, then I'm not going to be connected at all. So that's something I really would love to learn, and we would love to implement even here. Um, I don't know, even like creating a Yellow Dig community and have different students who are already graduated connected to that community. I don't know how can we manage that, especially with all these FRAPA policies, and we don't know really how to connect that, how keep them engaged. Nothing actually comes in my mind other than the social media like Instagram or Facebook. Uh, That's the only thing at this time I can see. Like even when I want to go to my departments and I want to see what they are doing at this time, what research they are working on, who's joining after I just left. I just use those social media platform like Facebook, but not all the time. Those are up to date. And I feel like I'm just watching and reading, but I'm not really participating with them. That's one of the things.
Great. I'm hearing a little bit of a need. There's a gap, it sounds like for sure. Nick, did you have something else? I want to shift gears real quick before we just open up for questions and sort of final thoughts. But what else you got on this one?
Yeah, thanks for letting me jump in there. It definitely is a gap between finishing your degree at American University and staying connected. One strategy that we deploy because we have a lifelong learning section of our office is let's take those faculty who are our champions. We referenced them earlier when we were talking about beginning stages of adopting Yellow Dig. Let's ask them to, you know, within our budget, which is, obviously a challenge in many places, to create a micro credential, create a certificate, do whatever they can to keep their name out there for students and to market that solid connection that they hopefully have created with a faculty member. So we might use some of that data that Maha was talking about, like which of our faculty members used Yellow Dig, for one example, or used our LMS in ways that were most engaging with students. Can we ask them to, repackage some of that content in some other credential? And because of the economics being as they are, we are looking for non-degree opportunities for people to seek out American University and hopefully also private partnership as well, where company organization around the DC area will want to use our great knowledgeable faculty and our great resources to build up the skills of their workforce. So a couple of things there, and there is a gap to making all of that happen. So really would love to hear ideas on that end.
John, can I say one more thing connected to Nick? So, I probably haven't said Augusta University enough. You're really good about that. So at Augusta University, how do we, we're all about reputation. Higher ed is all about reputation. We live off of that, from one student to one faculty member to a staff member. So how do we use these innovative practices that we're doing in all three, New Mexico, Washington, American, how do we use that to help build that reputation beyond the reputation for teaching? Because that's what it is. It's part of the teaching reputation. Boy, I would like some help with that. Yeah, marketing team from Yellow Dig. How do we do that? But that's a part of getting them to come back, right? Is and builds our connections to the community, John.
Yeah, it's a great point. Great point. Um, and I'm sure our marketing team would love to chat with you about how we celebrate the success we've had together. But that's not what this is about. Holly in the chat, I want to make sure we get to this question. It's actually a really good question. She's saying that in her online classes, discussions are written by AI. This is very common. I'm hearing this a lot. And students are treating it as a performative exercise, just checking the box, just getting it done Sunday night, and then they move on. So how do we avoid that fate? And this is kind of back to that framework or that thinking, and how do you approach the idea of a discussion thread or a discussion assignment differently, and how do you shift faculty's thinking on this to avoid the AI trap? Who are my IDs that are
I
working
was
on
just
something?
wondering, oh, we're going there. We're bringing up the AI part of all of this, and I'm really glad that we are because we maybe take it for granted that using artificial intelligence is the future of the workplace. Um, I'm doubtful that it's the future of human conversation with one another, that I will be responding with you by way of ChatGPT at first. At least I hope not. And that's that's really the objective, right? Of a low stakes conversation and a learning community is not, and graduate students have a real tendency to do this. I notice it when I look at Yellow Dig courses, but they do want to show their aptitude. They want to show that they are really intelligent. And one of our big drives is to get them to, loosen up a little bit. And whether they use ChatGPT or not to write those really beautiful, eloquent, long posts, there's a shorter post just about what's interesting to you, what's top of mind. I think would break students potentially out of thinking that in order for me to have a competitive advantage in this course, I need to be using some sort of generative AI. This is a really great question. Thanks, Holly.
I think, Holly, that there are multiple aspects of Yellow Dig that really helps with this. One is as the faculty member, because you're not grading, you're in the conversation. And that means you're in the conversation from the first time when they introduce yourselves, you know what field they're in, you know what background they're in, you know what kinds of experiences. So you can engage as they go through the conversations on different topics. You can ask them a question about that, related to what they told you about themselves and what their context is. And I think that is really helpful. I jot notes still down on paper, but I also can sort by them and I can see them. So I think that is really helpful. I also think some of the mechanisms that are built in that are the social media, right? So you can hashtag. So I can create hashtags as I'm reading. I'm seeing people are talking about the same thing. So I can say hashtag, what the particular topic is. Maybe they both have the same role. Maybe they both are in the same field kind of idea. I can help connect them to that. And then what I notice is when I do something, a behavior, then the students do that behavior. So getting them to make more connections, even just connecting 3 or 4 people together. So it's this idea of connectivity within the conversation that I'm in there reading it and I'm paying attention to it and I'm honoring others that are in there reading it and paying attention to it. And that you can do through the accolades. You can say, oh, really great connector. There's another 100 points because you're talking about what 3 other people were talking about. And I think all of those come together to community and that it's a conversation more than a written assignment.
Yeah, so Heidi, you went there at the very end, and then that's kind of the headline. It's just the fact that discussions are not graded in Yellow Dig. So that's, I definitely don't want to steer this towards just a tool conversation, but the framework is that if a discussion is graded as an assessment, it's performative and people know that they need to perform well in order to get that grade. And so the idea here is that the persistent social layer, the community that we provide, gives them the opportunity to just ask the question that they would have asked normally out of curiosity and really just participate as equal participants with their faculty. So great question, Holly. Thank you.
I want to just add to what Heidi just mentioned. One of the things that faculty always reach out to us is how can I use the discussion, either Yellowdig or the regular discussion or any other platform, and know that my students are not going to use the AI. So that's what Heidi just mentioned, like, hey, ask them a follow-up question. So we know that the AI always struggle when we ask where with the personalized, let's say, and applied prompt. So when we create a discussion with our students where they need to describe things or describe a moments related to their life, apply things based on their experience. Usually, from here we can tell if the student did use an AI or not because they need to add their own voice, not the AI. Usually also asking students, I've seen faculty asking students to provide evidence about what they are thinking about their idea or how did they resolve a thing, something like that. That's one of the thing we have seen faculty using, especially with AI, with Yellowdig, because they like Yellowdig, but they were always afraid of the students generate the whole prompt using AI. So we always direct them to make it more personalized, specific, and ask students to provide evidence and share their own experience, which is going to be hard for AI to generate those type of questions.
Yeah, so I think what you're getting at, Ma, in general is the idea of motivation. So
Yep.
students need to be motivated to connect with each other in
Yes,
the ways that we provide for them, as opposed to motivated to sort of just achieve or accomplish an assignment. So
that's true.
yeah. Um, Any final thoughts, final questions? I know we're gonna come up on time here. I did have a final like wrap up question, but it could be too deep. It could be getting too far into to maybe we do a 30-second speed round. Can we do that? So
And
one of my final thoughts is sort of just around like if you could rebuild something from the ground up, and again, this is like that could be a 20-minute conversation. If you could just rebuild the student experience kind of from scratch and think about, no prior sort of limitations, where would you focus and how would you make sure that students feel, connection to you and the university? We touched on quite a bit of this, but maybe as a parting thought for us, anybody want to try to tackle that one?
I will wager my uh, belief on this, which is that higher education and university experience is couched in return on investment many times, which is some future-oriented um, goal that maybe if I, treat this like a job and I, have to go through some boring lecture videos for, a couple of months, I'll get some positive outcome in my life. Whenever I notice a population geared more toward what at the present is going to benefit my life, I think having a solid network is one of those things that we would say does that. And another thing, like we have experience, let's build content together. Let's show what we know and work together to solve problems versus uh, uh, a thought process that I need to go through the usual flow of higher education to get some sort of future reward. Those are my thoughts on where we might look to rebuild for student engagement.
Love it. Thank you. That's great.
In the beginning, you mentioned frameworks, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Community of Inquiry by Garrison, Anderson, and Archer. And I think that's a great place to start when you're thinking about how do we build an experience, because that to me is all about connections, cognitively with the teaching, with the social, interacting with each other. And if we use something that has us thinking multidimensionally about the student experience and has in that sort of sweet spot the combination of bringing the student in, the faculty member in, challenging them cognitively and allowing the faculty to be in the conversation, to be teaching, which is, I think that's a really strong point. So I'd start with the community of inquiry as a framework.
Yeah, super. I just dropped it in the chat there for those who aren't familiar. It's actually something that we talk about quite often. When we speak with prospective and current partners, that social presence is often the thing that's really missing. And it's the research here that's actually very solid that sort of backs that idea that, without that, you start to see that lack of belonging and you see that reduced persistence. Maha, any final thoughts? You want to rebuild things from the ground up from an enterprise technology perspective? You probably have a different answer for us.
I think nothing beyond what Haley and Nate just shared. What I would always love to see is a connection between the technologist, the instructional design, and the instructor, because the more like having let's say the instructional design and the students work, I'm sorry, the faculty working together is not enough. They need a technologist who can provide them with everything or all the tools they have. Also, the technologists and the faculty is not enough. We need the instructional design who can tell us exactly how we can implement those technology. So we always encourage faculty. And I'm as an enterprise and I'm faculty at the same time. I love to like to have both the instructional designer and the technologist when I design my course because I want to create a course that is engaged, more I can reach out my students. I don't want my students to feel more overwhelmed or falling behind. I want to see also when my students are falling behind. Not all the time instructor recognize, especially if they are teaching multiple course, that the students or a certain student is falling behind. With the technologist, they can tell them, especially if they are using those tools that can measure the students at risk and reach out to them earlier as much as earlier possible, let's say. That's my answer.
That's great. No, I love it. The idea of, and this is maybe a good final thought. Thanks for helping us land the plane right on time here. But really, the things that you're talking about there are, yeah, these are human connections, and these are collaborative efforts to build and to deliver and to participate with students. And so that's a great, I think, a great note for us to end on, that we want to maintain those human connections. So. Uh, Glenn, I'm sure you've got some final thoughts, but thanks everybody for participating. Maha, Heidi, Nicholas, we ran through an hour very quickly, and we really appreciate your insights, your experiences. So thanks for being here today to share that with us.
Thank you so much for hosting this great presentation. It was a great learning experience from everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, just as a final thought, thank you so much for joining us. We have a hand, I know we had a hand raised, but it went down. So thank you so much for joining, for being part of this amazing webinar, and we'll see you in the next opportunity for our next Yaodi webinar. So we will be waiting to see you here again. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.